Okay. Hi there, everybody, and I hope everybody's doing um, as well as you can be, because many of you probably feel like you're running around like as the proverbial chicken with your heads cut off. And that's where I was coming from exactly from this particular week, trying to address that particular issue, because I realized that at least, well, the people in the Western Hemisphere who are getting ready for the holidays, whether it be Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever holiday you're getting ready for, at least I'm assuming, I realize that that's not necessarily true on everybody's part, but at least I'm making the wild guess that many of you are doing something like that. And you're probably running around, as I said, feeling like a chicken with a head cut off. Have you stopped to do what I just did? Take a breath. Now, many of you are probably going to say, I don't have time to breathe. I'm running around. I've got a list to do longer than, my arm, and I've got no time to do it, blah, blah, blah. And you're on and you're on and you're on and you're on and you're on. Let's think about this for a couple of seconds here, folks. If you're using all of that energy to do all of that stuff, whatever that stuff happens to be, when do you re-energize, and when do you recharge, and when do you get the energy back so that you can continue to do whatever it is that you need to do? Now, you might be, or have somebody, a 4-year-old floating around, and sometimes look at that 4-year-old and see that that 4-year-old runs around like crazy and say, gee, I wish I had that energy. But you also know that at some point in time, that 4-year-old is going to collapse and go into a deep nap and then get up and start all over again. Even a 4-year-old needs to take the rest to get up and be able to continue that particular energy. And you're not 4-year-olds anymore, and you don't have that kind of energy. So what makes you think you can run around in circles and not take some time for yourself to get that energy back? Sooner or later, that energy is going to go out, and you're not going to have anything left over, right? So with that in mind, I got into the quote this week from John Lubbock, who happens to be, or was anyway, he's dead, British statesman who apparently, which I don't know anything about, just found out about it when I looked him up, got archaeology considered a science, and this was way back when. Let's see, when did he leave? He died in 1913. So this has been over a century ago. But he was a British statesman, he was a scientist, and he got involved in all of this. And even so, he came up with this particular quote: "Rest is not idleness, and to lie sometimes in the grass is by no means a waste of time." Rest is not idleness. And therein lies the whole key to the thing. I think a lot of people see rest or taking a few moments off to sort of, quote, do nothing as being somehow wrong. If you're resting, then you're not doing what you need to do. And it's like, I don't want to call it evil exactly, but people look at it with a very, very negative concept. It's like, I shouldn't be resting. I can't be resting. But I go back to what I said earlier. If you don't rest, where do you get the energy to continue doing whatever it is that you need to do? Think about that, folks. I mean, if you're going to sit there and do nothing, to rest, that is, sooner or later, you're going to collapse, or you're going to find later, how do I say this? You're going to continue to do certain things, and then later you're going to look back on those and said, gee, where was my mind when I did that? It's because your mind is just getting so tired, right? You've got the errands, you've got everything that's going on, and maybe meeting with different people and getting together with friends and trying to fix up the house and do this and do that and do that. And you feel probably like you're falling behind. And then the idea of saying, oh, I can't rest, that's going to sort of like discombobulate you, to be perfectly honest. Now, rest, however, is not neglect. It's actually a piece of quiet trust. Okay? Think about this. If you think in terms of the idea of what matters will wait while I breathe. What matters will wait while I breathe. It's a bit of trust in yourself that if you get the chance to breathe and take a rest, you'll rejuvenate yourself to some degree and be able to continue what you're doing instead of basically falling apart on the floor or falling asleep behind the wheel of a car or some such thing like that. I was reading earlier today of an email of somebody who was reading to her daughter and fell asleep. That's the sign of somebody who's just so exhausted that in the middle of whatever it is they're doing, they just collapse because they can't continue to go. And how much are you going to get done if you're going to collapse? Okay. So when you pause, your mind softens. In a sense, your hearts, if you want to look at it that way, catch up to where you're going. And you reconnect to some kind of rhythm that's yours, whatever that rhythm may be. You take a look at what you've got and where you're going and why you're doing what you're doing. Does this make sense? When you're going around in circles, you don't have a chance to take a look at what's going on. So if you've got children and you're running around in circles, you don't get a chance to see your children, and your children are looking for mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, or whoever you happen to be, and you're not paying any attention to them. You're not paying attention to other things that may need to be paid attention to. In a sense, it's a variation on the phrase of taking the time to smell the roses. So you're catching up with who you are and where you want to be. Okay? So just take a chance sometime this week of just going outside and getting some fresh air. Now, granted, you may be in a situation in which it's minus 47 degrees below zero. Okay, so maybe just 2 seconds outside, or go into something like a garage or someplace where you can get cooler air than you normally do when you're in the house or anything else like that, or just basically some place that's different, not with full of gas fumes, mind you, so maybe the garage might not be a good idea, but looking for something slightly different so you can just stop and take a deep breath and think about what's going on and just sort of appreciate the fact of where you are and what you're going. Now, you don't have any cell phone, you don't have a list, you don't look at anything, you're just sitting there taking a few minutes just simply to breathe and essentially catch your breath, literally. Okay? Take a moment to rest. I'm not saying go down and, go to sleep for 45 minutes. If you can do that, go ahead and do that. But if nothing else, at least take a few minutes to just go off to yourself quite quietly and just take a few deep breaths and appreciate the fact that you can breathe and that you're there and have the ability to go off and do whatever it is you're doing. Take a few minutes and then go back and start all over again. I would be willing to bet that you'll find yourself with more energy and more able to continue to think about what you need to do with a little bit more awakeness, if I can use that word, awareness of what you're doing, and it's going to go much easier for you. Don't just drive yourself into the ground because you think you've got to get everything done. Take some moments to just think about yourself and catch up with yourself. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you think about it, and I'm going to put this later in the email so that you've got a reminder of it, give yourself permission to be idle. You're replenishing, not pausing. You're replenishing and not stopping. You're replenishing and not being lazy. Does that make sense? I hope so. Now, this is shorter than usual, but you're probably running around, but hopefully this was useful. And so maybe take a minute or two now to just stop and breathe and let yourself sort of rest and relax. Okay? So I probably won't chat with you until after the holidays. Maybe, maybe not. I don't plan on it because we're all running around crazy, right? That's the whole idea. So even I will take a chance to take a few moments to breathe. So if you catch this before or during the holiday week, whichever that holiday happens to be, I hope you have a good week and things work out really well for you. And I will be thinking about you, and we will chat with you later. Bye.